Alright, we have one more special showcase this week, dedicating some time to Tacticon 2022, a new festival for all things strategy, RPG, and very numbers-heavy games. The footage you're going to be seeing for today is going to be games that were both press key submissions as well as demos. And as always, if you're interested in submitting for a future showcase, please get in touch. But with that said, let's get on with the showcase. Alright, we are starting things off with These Doomed Isles, one of the few demos we got from the festival, and this is a god game meets city builder with a touch of roguelike thrown in. How this works is that it's up to us to keep our lands healthy and growing while dealing with ever-increasing threats. The deck building and god game aspects come in by every 4 turns. You can spend gold to acquire cards. Cards will provide you with a unique benefit, but some of them will have a limited time usage. The concept here is that the cards you get will synergize with the resources that you can place down on the islands, which in turn will provide you with more food, gold, etc., which will allow you to grow your place out, as well as allow you to afford to buy more defenses and things to help you. When enemies come to attack, you can use god powers, defensive structures, or conscript your various villagers to fight them. Every time you do something good and deal with those enemies, you'll build up victory points, which are calculated in the upper right. Fill up the meter and you will win. But of course, if they destroy everything or you run out of resources, you are in deep trouble. I like the concept of this game, but the tutorial and onboarding I think definitely need some work. When we try to follow the tutorial, we actually lost the game. Like, it does not do, I think, a good enough job of explaining the rules and systems. And I may have to talk about that in another video at some point. But the general gameplay, I think, is interesting. I would like to see, I think, more cards, such as having more synergies, more ways of earning victory points, that kind of thing. And I don't know if they are in the finished game, as we were quite limited by, of course, this being a demo. But if you're looking for another challenging kind of city builder adjacent game, I would at least check this one out. Now up, we have Isle of Arrows. This is a game that's in this very recent trend of tower defense roguelikes. For this one, your job is to build an ever-expanding island, setting up towers, lanes, and so on in order to deal with escalating waves of enemies. The challenge here is that every turn you are given a randomly chosen card. This card could be a new tower, a path, some other thing. And your mission is to keep extending out, keep powering things up in order to deal with the enemies. As you get further in, more lanes will open up and you'll have to split your focus between the two. The pathing is very challenging, as you only have very limited ways of rotating paths, and you are also limited by your island, which you can gain certain upgrades or items that can extend things out. Persistence comes in the form of unlocking new cards, as well as new kind of factions that will affect what your starting deck will be and upgrades and that kind of stuff. I like the very minimalistic aesthetic of this one, but it was kind of hard to, I think, feel motivated to keep playing. One of the big things is that there isn't really a lot of, I think, different strategies, at least not from what we could see from our time playing. Once the enemies start to overtake your towers, it didn't really seem there was anything else I could do. I was not getting new towers to spawn. It's not that I could do anything more effective in terms of laning. And I'm sure there are advanced players who have figured things out, or maybe they just got really lucky at the game. I would give this one a check if you are a fan of tower defense styles, but I'm not sure if the, I guess, roguelikeness of it is strong enough to give you different runs or give you a lot more variance in terms of what towers can spawn, what your different tactics are, etc. We now have Alina of the Arena. The footage that you're seeing is taken from the game just about wrapping up early access. It should be out in, I believe, early to mid-October. But this is a deck building style roguelike, where instead of focusing purely on cards, there's a greater emphasis on gear. You are trapped in a gladiatorial arena, and you're bound to fight your way out one battle at a time. So the twist here is that you'll be able to pick up weapons and items in the environment, which you can then apply either to your cards or use them as a consumable, like a grenade, dynamite, and so on. Cards or weapons that modify your cards will be based on the color of the card that you see in the bottom of the screen. So if I have a crossbow equipped to my red slot, that means that the crossbow is going to modify all my red cards, blue to blue, that kind of thing. So your progression is doubled between both getting better cards and upgrading them, and finding better gear that can supplement those cards themselves. Now this is a fairly challenging game, and it can definitely fall into that situation where it just feels like the game is not giving you anything to succeed. When I got to the boss of the first area, basically he attacks 2 tiles, but I can only move 1 tile by default. So there was no way to actually avoid his attacks, nor did I have enough defensive options in order to mitigate that damage. So it just was, well, I'm done. And I'm not sure if the balance is really there, even with the game close to being out of early access. That it didn't seem like there was as many viable tactics and strategies, and this is one of those games where one really good early weapon or really good early card, and you're basically good. But if you don't get that early stuff, then you are in deep trouble. If you're looking for a challenging deck building style game, I would at least give this one a check. We now turn to Knock on the Coffin Lid. This is shown using early access footage and may not represent the current version of the game. For this one, we have a more traditional deck building roguelike, using gear both as equipment or stats as well as for new cards. We play as one of 3 characters who died under mysterious circumstances to find ourselves revived many years later to a land that is very unforgiving. In order to figure out what is going on, we're going to have to get out of our little coffins and do some combat. I liked some of the background art and character models for the enemies, but I felt that the main character looked a little bit generic. And over the course of the time I played, I never found him shoes. But if you've played any deck building roguelike over the past 6 or so years, then the generals here should be very familiar. You have different sources of energy, or you have 3 energy. You have cards of varying costs. Play them, try to avoid damage, and don't die. Where the game tries to differentiate itself from other deck builders is that, again, gear will award you or confer on you unique cards, and there are set piece bonuses that will change your properties or affect you if you can wear multiple pieces of that set. While all cards can be upgraded, cards that have, I think it's called adaptive on them, when you upgrade them, you can transfer them into one of 3 varieties, such as specializing in more block, or more damage, or getting a synergy bonus, that kind of thing. But my main issue that I had with Knock on the Coffin Lid was that it didn't feel like there was enough unique selling points for this one, for someone who is already well acquainted with a Slay the Spire, or a Monster Train, and so on. Now, with the game being in early access, of course, that does give it plenty of time to grow, and I'm sure balancing and updates will be done, especially by the time you're watching this, or if you're watching this in the future. I'm generally interested to see where this one goes, but I'm hoping that, again, we get to see more unique elements that will make this game stand out. We now have Spirits of the Hellements, and this is another game that is in early access and may not represent the current version of it. But of the games that we play from Tacticon, this one I think was the most surprising in terms of enjoyment. What we have is a tower defense game, but with a focus on customizing your towers and setting up a variety of strategies. How this works, your towers are elemental spirits that you see along the bottom of the screen. Each elemental spirit has its own unique properties as well as different upgrades that you can take as you level them up. You set down blessings on the map that act both as walls as well as where you can set up your towers. Also on the map, you see those elemental nodes. If an enemy walks across them, they will suffer an effect, but if you put one of your towers on there, each tower will get a unique bonus on top of all their other stuff. So this is a game that is really all about not only figuring out the proper pathing you want your enemies to take, but also what towers you want where and what upgrades you want to give them. For instance, one tower placed on the right node gets infinite range. You have anti-air towers, buff debuffs, all that good stuff that we've come to know from these games. Now, with that said, the game's aesthetics, I think, are a little generic, and I would like to see maybe some more unique elements that go with it. But I really enjoy the tower defense gameplay here. You can further unlock unique upgrade routes and trees for each one of your towers using a persistent currency. Story just seems to be bad guys are invading, you need to stop them. But the game certainly has a lot of levels right now in it. And this one definitely gets a recommendation from me if you enjoy tower defense games and are looking for another one to play. Now up, we have Orcs. This is another game that is in early access, and what you see may not represent the current version of it. For this one, this is a kind of city builder meets card style game. Our mission is to defend our land from the invading orcs, while building and maintaining the infrastructure and setting up castles and battle emplacements in order to defend. Your cards come in several varieties. You have buffing cards that can be applied to castles and troops, units that you can put down, roads and buildings I'll get to in a second, and then you have the various parts of your castles. And this is where it gets very interesting. You need to combine the various individual castle pieces in order to make a fully and completely enclosed castle to then turn it into a battlement. When you do that, it will have space for you to buff and have its own health and defense pool. If you put the wrong pieces on, it just ends up being this weird mess of stone. In order to earn money, you build roads, which the roads also allow you to control or put more stuff down. The longer the road is when you quote-unquote end it, using a building or just end the road normally, will earn you a steady pool of gold. And you'll need gold, of course, to fund all your cards. When enough time has passed, you will get invaded by the various orcs, and you must use your powers, towers, and soldiers in order to defend against them. As the game goes on, you'll have to choose various curse cards or orcs cards that will give them more advantages, and you're constantly having to weigh the risk reward of introducing more corruption to the world. The higher the corruption, you'll get access to more cards and more rewards, but the enemies will become more advanced, stronger, and obviously harder to play. I had a little bit of some difficulty with the castle construction. For the life of me, I cannot figure out how you use the diagonal section walls for anything in this game, and if the developer is watching, I could certainly use a hint there. But this game definitely has some nice look to it. I love the kind of like stained glass almost style aesthetic, and there are certainly some unique gameplay here with the managing of the cards, towers, and so on. All the levels, I believe, are procedurally generated, and they are going to be adding in more factions, more challenges, etc., etc. So if you are looking for a different kind of building or roguelike-esque game, definitely check out Orcs. Now up, we have Dream Engine's Nomad Cities. This is another game that's in early access, and what you see may not represent the current version of it. This is a kind of Factorial meets city building roguelike, which is definitely a lot of words right there. Our mission is to use our flying city or maneuverable city in order to gather resources, stay one step ahead of the monsters out to get us, and hopefully keep our citizens happy and fed. How this all works is that you can construct buildings and structures on just about anything, provided there is power. However, your actual city, those are the kind of like greenish tiles, that can take off. So any buildings that are on there when you fly away will come along for the ride, provided they do not go over your weight capacity. In order to gather resources, you must set up gatherers on nodes as well as resource refiners, who can then transport those goods to the various buildings that need them. And anytime you can go into combat mode to explore, fight off enemies, and make areas safe to start harvesting, while of course making sure that nothing is out to kill you. As you play, the world threat or the area threat will grow, causing more raids to show up, stronger enemies, and at some point you are required to lift off and move to another area in order to continue your goal and mission. As you play through, you will unlock additional upgrades, stronger weapons, buildings that can gather or transport goods around for you, and it's all about that kind of feedback loop again of a Factorio, where things start off very hands-on, and you'll soon unlock more upgrades to make things faster, quicker, and so on. I like the general play of this one, although I'm still not sure from what we spent playing the build on a stream as to what the overall goal is. Like, are we gathering resources to complete a certain project? Is there a point where we quote-unquote win? Or is this just going to be a sandbox-style game? And like I said at the start of this section, this is in early access, so things may be changed, added, or removed for those of you looking at this video in the future. But I enjoyed this one. I've been liking these kinds of roguelike city builders we've been seeing lately, like Against the Storm, and Dream Engine's Nomad Cities also has potential along those lines. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have a few more games to look at for our showcase, and if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out my game design books. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with more coming soon. Now up, this is the Iron Oath. Yet again, another game in early access, and what you see may not represent the current version of it. For this one, it feels kind of like a mix of the managing a company and different characters of, say, Battle Brothers, but with more of a class-based or, I guess, tactical or strategy RPG elements of it. We play as the leader of a mercenary company, where the world is beset by mysterious plague, the dead are rising, people are doing evil stuff, and we are just trying to survive. While you won't see it in this video, there is a world map that you can explore, go on missions into dungeons, and manage your people. Each character belongs to one of several classes. Each class, of course, will come with its own utility, skill tree, passives, that kind of good stuff, and you'll build your party accordingly. One of the things I like about the Iron Oath is that the combat is very meaty. This is a game that is built on using positioning as well as planning. Enemies and characters have a zone of control. You can set up traps, push enemies into each other, into traps, pits, so on. And this is definitely one of those games where a small group that knows what it's doing can certainly survive against a larger, more unorganized group. As you explore dungeons, you'll need to manage your resources, get out while keeping your people alive, and the game certainly boasts a lot of interesting options. Now, with that said, I didn't get a chance to look too far into the world map and kind of, I guess, company management side of things from there. But this game is definitely shaping up to be a very interesting strategy RPG. And if you are a fan of the genre and looking for what could be a very lengthy experience, then definitely check out The Iron Oath. And now for the last game of our Tacticon coverage, this is The Wandering Village. Once again, it is in early access, and what you see may not represent the current version of it. In one of those strange twists, this is not the first game I've played lately that involves city building management on top of a giant turtle-like creature, which could be a new trend for indie dev watching. But our concept here is that we are on the back of this giant creature. I believe its name is Anbu, who is carrying us around a world that is full of toxic spores and danger. And we are going to have to work with it in order to build our city, keep everyone alive, and keep Anbu alive as well. So the game itself features two different tracks of building. You have the actual city management, resource gatherers, and productions, and then you have structures specifically designed to interact or manipulate Anbu. You can build things to give it food, try to direct the direction it will go, help it out if it gets sick, and so on. You'll need to research a lot of the different tech, and your main limitations are going to be the various settlers, as you'll need to send out scouting parties to find advanced resources, get more people to join, all while dealing with the different elements of where Anbu is going. If it goes into an area that is, let's say, more desert-like, it means it's going to be hard to produce certain kinds of crops. But if he goes into a rainy area, that can affect things as well. You'll need to manage food as well as water and medicine. As you keep building and unlocking more things, your people will grow, and they will also require higher quality goods, better food, etc., etc. And one tip starting out is definitely invest early in water, as you're going to be using it for a lot, and I do mean a lot of crops, and you're going to run out very quickly. As with a lot of the other city building or unique city building games that I've played lately, I really like the concept for The Wandering Village. The main thing from what we played of this, and again, this is still relatively, I think, early in its early access, is what is the end game, or is there an end game to this? As it just seems like your main focus is just building, and surviving for as long as you can before you either run out of resources or you're just not able to keep Anbu alive for too long. But if you are looking for a very different kind of city builder, definitely check out The Wandering Village, and I'm really curious to see where they take things through its early access. So, with everything said, thank you so much for watching our Tacticon 2022 indie demo or just indie coverage here on the channel. Do all the liking, subscribing, and commenting. You'll find links to all the games down in the description. Be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, whereas in the art and science of games.